Welcome to Fun with Annuities with your host, me, Stan the Annuity Man, America's annuity agent. Can annuities be fun? Can contractual guarantees be fun? Absolutely they can. Find out the brutal facts about annuities with no sales pitches or high-pressure nonsense. Just the brutal and factual annuity truth, which is all you need to hear. Let's have some fun with annuities, and let's have that fun start right now. Welcome to Fun with Annuities, the #1 annuity podcast on the planet. I'm your host, Stan the Annuity Man, America's annuity agent, licensed in all 50 states. And man, am I excited about today, because today we're going to talk about indexed annuities. And we have a special guest with us. This is his first appearance on Fun with Annuities, but it certainly will not be his last, because we're going to really dig in to everything indexed annuity, because it's the go-go product. And if you have a sprained ankle or a sore throat and you ask your advisor what you need, they'll say an indexed annuity. It's the square peg into the round hole right now. But let me give a little bit of background on our guest. And I can't give too much. I'm not going to give his name. I'm not going to give where he came from. All I'm going to tell you, he has decades and decades and decades of experience in the indexed annuity space. Now, because this is such a sensitive topic, and it really upsets people when the truth comes out. If you're watching this on the Fun with Annuities YouTube channel and you're watching, the split screen, he has a mask on. Literally, that's how dangerous this is for him to tell the truth. So he is in an undisclosed location. It's a little echoey where he's at. So, turn the volume up, because he literally is doing this incognito. And I really appreciate it, because the truth needs to come out. Now, for all the people on the podcast platforms, Spotify and Stitcher, iTunes, and all those, just understand that I'm not going to use his name. His name is Mr. X, Mr. FIAX. FIA stands for Fixed Indexed Annuities. That's who he is. So from here on in, it's Mr. X, and there will be no contact information for him. But trust me when I say this, he has forgotten more than everyone's known about indexed annuities. He knows where all the bodies are buried. And we're going to go through the product and talk about the good stuff and the bad stuff. And this is more of a foundational overview about indexed annuities, because what you're going to hear at the Bad Chicken Dinner sales seminars and things like that is you're going to hear all the too good to be true stuff. As I always say, don't buy the dream, because you're going to own the contractual realities. So with that being said, I'd like to welcome to the Fun with Annuities podcast, Mr. X. Hey, Mr. X.
We're doing good today, Scott. How are you?
Doing great. Hey, let's go through just the background of indexed annuities. Obviously, they were designed, developed, and introduced in 1995, but take us on the historical trip of indexed annuities and where we were then and where we are today.
Well, back then it became where the variable world wanted to meet the fixed world, and they would combine. No one had that idea. No one had the concept. No one had the reality of having that upside of the market with some downside protection. It seemed unrealistic, to say the least. The challenge was putting it together, but as I would say everyone knows, but they don't, is you're not participating in the stock market. You're not going to get market-like returns. You're not going to get market-like gains. You're going to get a better than average chance at a better than average return. Anything other than that is blue sky and BS. Period.
And let's stop again for the listeners out there. Mr. X is wearing a mask for a reason, for his safety, and just the fact that if people knew who this was, there would be a lot of blowback. So you're going to, listen up, turn on the volume, but he literally has a mask on because we're protecting his identity of what we're doing. So I always tell people that, this is not a security. Index annuities are not a security. And, for anyone to say market upside with no downside or market participation with principal protection, it's misleading. Now, it's
blatantly false. It's not misleading. It's blatantly false.
It's blatantly false.
Misleading is, it might be over there. Blatantly false is it's never over there.
Got you. And the way that the Annuity Man, and I use it, index annuities, primarily as a cost-efficient and effective and simple delivery system for income riders when future income is needed, and then we shop all income riders for the highest contractual guarantee. We really don't spend any time on the caps and spreads and participation rates because, you know, as Mr. X said, these aren't market return products. They were designed to compete with CDs, and currently the returns are more like MYGA, multi-year guarantee annuity, which is the annuity industry's version of a CD, like those returns. So back then, I think, was it that Keystone was the first
Keyport.
index? Keyport?
Yes, Keyport was the first way back in the mid-90s.
Keystone's a beer, my fault.
That's right, yes.
Keyport was the first one, and back then they were pretty competitive. They got some pretty good returns, but some of the index option strategies were as long as 5 years in length. Am I correct?
Yeah, it was an amazing strategy back then because they didn't quite know where they were at. And the market has changed quite a bit. If you look at the 10-year note, if you look at the stock market, if you look at all the components that are tied around that make the annuities function, our 10-year note's been down for 12 years now, 13 years, somewhere in there. I know you're an old bond guy, so you know bonds as good as anyone.
Right.
And obviously the option cost, there's a volatility cost. What I mean is when the market is doing this,
and for the listeners, he's doing his hand up and down like volatility.
When the market goes up and down, it gets expensive to play. When the market's boring, it gets a little cheaper to play. Well, if the note is down at historical lows, and if you don't believe me, how's everybody's refinancing go on their house? It's probably going pretty well, okay?
Right.
When we go to look into the market, it's very volatile and very high. We're having huge swings daily, up or down. That makes the cost of that option expensive. Well, it's costing us more bonds, and we're having to spend money for more options. That's a kind of a perfect storm in a negative way for an index annuity.
Mr. X, walk me through. XYZ Insurance Company is going to put out an indexed annuity. Walk me through them sitting around the table to when it gets introduced to the consumer.
Well, obviously, before they start an indexed annuity, they have to have some type of premium guarantee. Meaning, how much business are you going to send us before we spend the money? Basically, think of it like a production spot. I'm going to allocate a spot, we're going to allocate the money, and we need at least X amount of dollars.
And what is that normal? What is that normal bogey? What are they looking for from the standpoint? The annuity companies that are life insurance companies issue annuities. Those companies, what are they looking for from the standpoint of money to raise to make the indexed annuity that they're introducing viable?
Every company's tolerance is different. I would say rule of thumb, 500 million to $1 billion before you even get their attention.
Per indexed annuity product.
Correct.
So if a carrier has 5 different versions of an indexed annuity, 5 different, is that all one, or is that 5 times 1 billion?
It's pretty much 5 times 1 billion, 5 times that $500 million, whatever that target is. They will have certain tranches of money that they have to go buy the bond. They have to go buy the option. They have to reserve for it. They have to allocate for this. You're going to have marketing expense. You're going to have things that have to get paid for. They allocate those dollars, and then those dollars fill the tub back up. One thing the clients, you have to remember, the insurance companies don't make money on these products till probably the 6th, 7th, 8th year.
That was my question. What's the break-even point for the annuity company that's issuing the indexed annuity?
They're all a little different, but typically 6th, 7th, 8th year. We could do some basic math with them. If you put $100,000 in, okay, if you look on your statement, there's typically penalties on the contract.
Surrender charges if you get out early, right?
And there's nothing wrong with surrender charges. You're making a commitment. They've committed the money to buy the bond, the option, etc. Okay?
Right.
They need to know you're going to be there and uphold your commitment. If you leave early and don't uphold your commitment, name me one thing when you break your commitment that you don't get penalized on. The annuity's not any different.
Got it.
They have to go cash in their investment. They may take a loss on it. Well, they're not going to lose. They upheld their commitment. So what are they going to do? They're going to have to penalize the client. It's very fair. Now, the question is how big are the penalties and how long are the duration? And there's other things that go into that.
So the annuity company decides to issue an indexed annuity. They've got to have money in the bank to back up, the issuing policy. Let's talk about when they decide on the index and all the participation caps and spreads. Who handles that, or do they farm that out to a bank? How does that work?
Well, there's a combination. Some companies, first of all, when they build the index annuity, roughly 95% of the money, give or take, is going in to purchase a bond.
So 95% of your indexed annuity is going into a bond, which pretty much shoots down the market thing, right?
Well, it gets bigger than that, but that's like the guarantees to make sure everything's there. A very small amount of your money goes to buy an option cost at an investment bank.
Okay.
Some annuity companies have their own option desk and they'll do it internally.
Okay.
Others farm it out. Every company's different.
And the ones that farm it out, who are they farming it out to? Is it the Goldmans and the JPs of the world?
Absolute Wall Street. They go to Wall Street without question.
And they say to Wall Street, we're doing an indexed annuity. We need you to buy the options. How does that work? And annuities are transfer of risk products. Is the annuity company transferring the risk to Goldman or JP Morgan?
Well, yes and no. Here's what they're buying an option. So let's work off of a cap product because that's easiest to explain.
Okay.
Right now, let's just say it's a 4% cap, meaning your upside is 4. Well, that kind of shoots down stock market like returns if the best I can do is 4, now isn't it?
Right.
Now, when you purchase an option at an insurance company, options are uncapped, meaning there is no cap. They go, whatever it does is what the return is.
Okay.
So this is an interesting play by the insurance company. They buy the option, let's say it's for $1.50.
Okay.
They only have to buy it up to 4%. Because isn't that the cap?
Yep.
So what do they do with everything above 4%? They sell it back to the investment bank. So that $1.50 option, say, cost them $1. And
so the annuity company doesn't keep everyone thinks that, well, I'm only getting 4% and the annuity company keeps the overage if there's overage. That's not true, right?
It's not true. So here's a great question to ask the advisor you're working with.
Should be me, but if it's your brother-in-law, this is what to ask him. Go ahead.
Well, this is a great way to circle right back to Stair. Ask them what happens to the excess.
They won't know.
They won't know. Majority won't know. Some will. Some will. They'll know. They've been trained properly. They've done some due diligence. They're, standard reality. There's some good agents out there.
Absolutely.
I know that.
Absolutely.
We're not picking on that, but I'm going to tell you what, there's a lot more not so good agents, to put it politely, than there are good ones.
Or agents and advisors that take the 30,000-foot view of index annuities, upfront bonus, market upside with no downside. I always tell people upfront bonuses are candy for the stupid. If you believe there's a philanthropist at an annuity company giving away free money, then you're the rube at the table. You're the sucker they're looking for. It's just part of the overall contractual guarantee, correct?
It's all built into the price of the product. I can promise you this. If you get a big bonus, you're paying for it.
Correct.
You finance that money over time is what you've done.
Now,
they're not giving it away. They don't have the big buildings because they gave it away, Stan.
And the logos on the planes, exactly. So they decide to do the index annuity. They have the bonds in place. They can back it up legally. It's heavily regulated by the states. It's issued.
Every state watches each other. It's not just your state. It's every other state's watching you, and you're watching everyone else. So the system works well. And here's why: because when the Depression hit, the annuity companies, the insurance companies, didn't falter. The banks did, the system did, but they all went to those companies to get money. It's a very safe, secure product. My bone of contention with the industry is how that safe and secure product is presented to the client. That's the problem.
And I don't think either of us blame the carriers to a point. Obviously, they could be a little bit more heavy-handed, but when you give this product that is a really good sales pitch to people that you can't oversee and you don't know what they're saying, then it's the wild, wild west. I mean, now you have people out there in the ads you see on the internet, 8% return and things like that, that give the industry a bad reputation. Getting back to kind of how the sausage is made with indexed annuities. Currently, at the time of this taping, there's over 700 index option strategies, and there's over 50 indices, some made out of thin air. How do people choose, or is it just a darn dart throw?
Your guess is as good as mine, because here's why. The advisor that's showing you that couldn't explain that index if his life depended on it. and I mean thoroughly. I don't mean the conceptual, here's how it works, here's what it does. Let's break it down to the ground, because a lot of these indices that are out there have never existed. They were manufactured.
Which I have a problem with. Do you, Mr. X, do you have a problem with that?
I think it's downright scary. Think about it. This never existed. And we made it out of thin air, but I think more scary is this. And here's all the numbers that it did for all those years if it would have been in existence.
Backtested numbers on something that didn't exist. In some states, that's getting ready to be, if not already, illegal to do. I actually believe that backtested numbers should be illegal.
I think illustration should be illegal. I think backtesting numbers should be illegal. I think the stuff they put in brochures should be illegal. And here's why. Because if you're looking at it now, you've already missed it.
Go deeper with that.
Well, think about it, is the stock market has never returned an identical return for 2 years in a row in the history of the market. So I love when they show me the returns of, oh, you'll average 6.94% over 20 years. It's impossible to return 6.94 every year because it's never returned historically. Now, the average might be that. I understand, and we'll probably get some blowback on this. But let's make it an easy number, 7. So if I do 14 one year and 0 the next year, I made a 7% return.
Right.
If I did 14 one year and I take out a withdrawal, and then I do 0 and I take out a withdrawal, we have a problem, don't we, Stan?
The math doesn't work. But you know, the good news about the accumulation value with index annuities is that if the option strategy is 1 year in length or 2 year in length, 3 year in length, whatever it is, you know, if you do have a gain of some sort, it locks in permanently. And I think that is a positive. There is kind of a stair step effect, but the stair step isn't market returns.
No, I was going to say, you're paying a high price for the stair step.
Very good point.
But let's go both ways. And I know this is something that you talk about. Our safety, security, and a guaranteed income.
Sure.
Number one priority, yes or no? If you say yes, then an annuity is a solution. Well, technically, it's the only solution because it's the only one that does what it does. If your answer is no, then Stan, you and I both know, okay, well, tell me what is.
Yeah.
And then you shake their hand and tell them have a great day because that's not what you do or what we do. It's contractual guarantee stuff.
If the answer is market returns, you know, have a nice day, call me when you need guarantees, because index annuities are not market return products. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that fact. The fact is they're CD type, MYGA type products, and that's fine. But, you know, there's so many choices. I did a talk the other day, and my comment was, if you buy a 10-year index annuity with a 10-year surrender charge, that's what the 10-year surrender charge, and you have a 1 year point-to-point option, you're in essence buying a 10-year surrender charge with a 1 year guarantee. Am I right about that?
One more time.
So someone buys an index annuity and it's, you know, it has 10-year surrender charges, and they got a 1 year option on it. They're in essence buying a 1 year guarantee with a 10-year surrender charge, because the annuity company can change the rules on the caps and spreads and participation rates at their discretion, correct?
That's where I thought you went. So I was going to say yes and no. Yes, you have a guarantee for 10 years, but no, you don't, because every year they can change it.
Exactly.
So that's why I needed it one more time, because I was like, it's yes and no. And I think one of the challenges is people, when you hear yes and no, they think you're trying to be shady, so to speak.
No, yeah.
It's not shady. It's just not so black and white. And that's part of the issue. It's not black and white. There are a lot of shades of gray. So I buy an option, and this is another issue I have with the industry. When I buy a product, it's guaranteed for 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, whatever the term of the indexing is.
Correct.
At the end of that term, all hell breaks loose. They can do whatever they want, and here's the part. They got your money. So it's the golden rule. They got the gold.
Well,
They're making the rules.
and that's what Mr. X refers to as renewal rates. What's the renewal rate? And there's a lot of renewal rate history, and he tracks that and helps the annuity man with that, and trying to find companies that are at least fair and equitable to a point with consumers on the renewal rates. Because as an example, sometimes we see teaser rates to get into a product, like the 1 year cap. The first year you get in is 7% cap. Then the second year, you have no say in what they're going to put it at. They can put it at 2.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because I think that's very important. And I know we're both big believers. If it sounds and smells too good to be true, it generally is.
Without exception, correct.
Without exception. Without exception.
Yeah.
So here's the challenge to that. If this company's at 7 and the rest of the industry is at 5, I will bet you the following year, the renewal rate is 5 or less. And here's why. All the companies buy the same bonds. There's no special bonds for company A versus company B. We'll use the S&P 500 for an example. The option on the S&P, there's only one option for the S&P. It's not a whole different. You want to buy the S&P, you buy the option. There's not S&P option A or option B. It's the S&P option. So how can company A offer 40% more on their cap than I can if we're all participating in the same marketplace?
It's a teaser rate. It's just like an upfront bonus. It's a teaser.
They're trying to dupe you. They're the old Barnum and Bailey. If you don't know who the sucker is, it's you, right?
No, absolutely. And I think that I really wish the indexed annuity side of the industry would just be brutally transparent about all this and hold people accountable that's not being transparent about the product. Now, obviously, I've written a book on it that I'll send to you for free if you go to theannuityman.com. And Mr. X and I always kid each other. You know, there's 5 people on the planet that fully understand index annuities, and I think me and him know the other 3. It's a very small world of people that truly understand how these products work. But what the most agents typically want you to hear is market upside with no downside. Most agents that sell indexed annuities only have a life insurance license, and they're not even allowed legally to say the word market or stock market or anything like that. And the other thing that I think is important is that when Mr. X talked about S&P 500 options, that's not including dividends, which is the dividends on the S&P represent over 50% of the return. So again, it's not markets. We're not putting it down. What this podcast is for, and by the way, for the people listening on all the platforms, Mr. X has on a mask because that's the reason he sounds a little bit muffled, and because we're protecting his identity. You know, as we go deeper into this and he comes back on Fun with Annuities, we're going to go into specific strategies, you know, annual point to point and monthly sum and all this stuff that you hear being pitched, and it sounds great. He's going to break them down and really tear them apart so you fully understand it. But I will tell you this: if you call Stan the annuity man and say, "Hey, I want to buy an indexed annuity," my question is why? Are you buying it because you're looking for a future income stream in the income riders? Or are you just looking for accumulation? Those are 2 separate conversations. Here's one I want to ask you, Mr. X. The income riders, which I think, I mean, they are commodity products. When people want future income, we shop all income riders for the highest contractual guarantee. But explain that you told me this a while back, and it's never left me, how the fees on an income rider are calculated and why annuity companies have the big buildings, understanding that the income rider fees come out of the accumulation value, which further waters down any potential return. Talk about that.
Well, it gets better than that. They always get their fee. See, this is what the people don't explain. This goes back to, it's not the product's fault.
Right.
It's the agent.
Correct.
It's the advisor. It's the whatever name you want to give them. It's their fault because they don't explain it. Because I think if I explained it in full detail, you might take a deep breath before you jump, to say the least. Okay.
Exactly.
The challenge with the income rider is the way they were originally presented was people thought it was real money. Is it real money, Stan?
It's a monopoly money in a phantom account, and Jimmy Carter yield doesn't exist. He's building houses in Georgia, hopefully, if he's still alive.
And then some. So the way the fee works is very simple, and you can demonstrate this with just get a bunch of change on a table, and I'll show you is every year, we'll just say it's 7% because this makes easy numbers. I put $100,000 in, I have a 7% income rider, I'm at $107,000 in my income account. So put that on the right side of the ledger.
Mm-hmm.
And then say the account returned 4.5%. My real value is 104.5, 104,500. The fee's 1%. That's pretty standard.
Right.
Right. They take 1% off the 104. It gets deducted. I'm sorry, it gets deducted from the 104. They take 1% from 107. So that's $1,070 off of the 104.5. Next year, we'll say it does 0. My income account's 114 and change.
Mm-hmm.
It's compounding. My account is 103 and change. Now they take that 1% times 114 and subtract it from the 103. The company always gets paid the most.
And as long as you defer that income rider, that fee is increasing by that lovely percentage that you think and it was sold as yield and it's not. It's increasing by that. And then once you do turn on the income stream, Mr. X, isn't that growing fee locked in permanently?
Forever. They're going to take that cut forever. So let's do it this way. Everyone knows at 10 years, 7.2% interest, your money doubles.
Correct.
So your 1% fee in year 1 at the end of year 10 is now 2%. How did we get there? Well, your 100 grew to 200, didn't it, Stan?
Correct. From contractually, the income rider side is worth 200,000. It's monopoly money in the phantom account. You can't cash in or get the interest, but that's where the lifetime income stream is going to be calculated at 200.
Right. So your monopoly money, the insurance company's real money.
Correct.
And they take that monopoly money account and multiply that and deduct it from your real money. Now, here's the wild part.
For the life of the policy.
For the life of the policy, they always get their cut forever.
Right.
It's their annuity. It's the insurance companies. The income rider is their annuity stream that they get paid forever.
Exactly.
Here's the craziest part. People think, well, if I live long enough, I'll beat the rider. You're going to have to live to maybe 110, 120.
To beat the whole thing. It is a transfer of risk.
And here's why. Let's go there. They have taken fees for the first 10 years that you were accumulating.
Correct.
We'll assume you turn it on at the end of the start of the 11th year, you turn on the rider, right?
Correct.
Now I'm year 11 and I'm living. They still are taking the fee, right?
Every year out of the accumulation value.
Now the sales pitch is it's guaranteed income forever. You'll never run out, which is important.
And it's true.
And it is true and guaranteed contractually.
Sure.
But they keep taking that fee. So when you finally spend all your money, the insurance company will keep paying. But think about it. Let's say this whole thing took 25 years. Right. I accumulated 10 and I lived 15. That's 25 years of fees that they've collected.
They're going to win, and I think you've come to
They're just paying you your fee money back. That's all.
No, and you've come to the annuity fork in the road, and this is what I tell people: annuities are contracts. You either like the contractual guarantee or you don't. You have to come to the reality that the annuity company is going to make their money, but you're transferring the risk to the annuity company to pay you a lifetime income stream, whether that's an immediate annuity, a deferred income annuity, a qualified longevity annuity contract, or an income rider. These are pension type products. But you know, you already own, if you're a citizen of this country, you already own the best inflation annuity on the planet. It's called Social Security. I think what Mr. X is trying to say is nothing's for free. Now, the other thing I want you to talk about is what percentage of the time when someone attaches an income rider to an indexed annuity, does the accumulation value exceed the income rider value?
I have to answer that?
It's really low or zero, correct?
I would say it's so beyond rare. Well, let me just do this for you. I'll give you an example. If you buy a capped product, never. Because 4 will never beat 7. Fair?
Ever. And I think that annuity companies are smart. They want lifetime fees on the policy. So when an income rider is attached, they know that person has to stay in the policy, because if you wanted to transfer that policy, the income rider benefits don't transfer, just the accumulation value. So it's really, I call handcuffing you into the policy. That's not a bad thing if you need income down the road. You know what you want it to be, and you want to know to the penny what that's going to be. But just understand, for the people out there that have already purchased an indexed annuity with a rider, don't just watch the rider. Don't just think it's Jimmy Carter yield. Turn on the income stream, transfer the risk, because otherwise, why do you own it? Right?
Well, you're paying for something you're not using.
Correct.
You're paying for it. Take the advantage. Take the opportunity to get that income and do it. And there's some strategies that I have done over my career that kind of like an income annuity rider rescue. Because Stan, you and I have very candid and honest conversations with each other. Not every client needs an annuity.
Correct.
Not every client needs an annuity income rider.
Correct.
What I typically find is a majority of them don't need the income rider, but it was put on there because that's how it was, for lack of a better term, sold.
Yeah, you can always do what I call a defer to SPIA strategy, which is buy the indexed annuity for the accumulation, knowing the realities of the return. And then at the time you need income, you can convert that or transfer that to an immediate annuity for the highest contractual lifetime income. I got a question, just hit me.
And you'll get a better tax ratio.
If it's non-qualified, you are non-IRA, you are correct. What's your opinion, Mr. X, on the current trend? This one blows the top of my head off. I want to see if it blows the mask off your face. Hopefully it won't, because we need you incognito. When advisors and masters of the universe, as I call them, sell an indexed annuity and then put a wrap fee on it, meaning that they're charging an annual fee for the management of a product that can only be changed one time per year. Am I missing something, or is that the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard?
Well, I think that should be illegal. I think it should be malpractice, because you're not managing anything. The insurance company took on all the risk. You have no risk. And you were paid pretty much all up front to service that contract. Now, some of the guys may take their money in a trail to where they get a little bit every year for what they do.
Right.
Well, that was your option. But there's no, it's kind of like a set it and forget it. I put it in here. Once a year, I have to take a look at it, which everyone should be reviewing their stuff minimum of once a year.
Sure.
Minimum, depending on where your things sit. It could be quarterly, semi-annually, but definitely once a year. Bar none.
That practice that I'm seeing more and more and more, because, you know, coming from the firms I used to work with, Dean Witter, Payne Weber, Morgan Stanley, UBS, the trend was to have everything wrapped, meaning that every asset under management had an annual fee that the advisor charged. That wasn't for the good of the client, by the way. That's so the firms could track future revenue. Don't be confused. period. I mean, that was all it was for. And for people to, and advisors to sell an indexed annuity, and firms are actually out there pushing this on the RIAs to wrap the indexed annuity. I have yet to have anybody explain to me why that's good for the consumer. Can you?
If you're an RIA, you're supposed to be looking out for the fiduciary obligation to the client. Your interests are first, not mine. I don't see how wrapping an account and getting an annual fee for doing nothing.
Exactly. I mean, it's a fixed annuity. I think one of the positives about index annuities, it's a fixed annuity. You are not going to lose money. So when people say market upside with no downside, half of that's true. No downside.
One of the things I think about when we've had one of the things I always say is life happens, right?
Right.
Life just happens. Imagine if you had all your stuff at your stockbroker and something tragic, God forbid, happened to your broker and life happened to him and he wasn't kind of keeping his eye on the ball.
Right.
Meaning the ball is your retirement, everything you worked for your whole life. And you wake up one day, he's like, well, I had this happen and that happened. I really wasn't paying attention. And now your account's worth, half of what it was because he didn't pay attention. To where the annuity is, if we never paid attention to it, really doesn't matter, does it, for the most part? Because why? It's all contractually guaranteed and it's going to do what it says it's going to do. Pretty simple.
Why is the industry complicated things with over 700 index options that I think you told me a long time ago and tell me if this is still true. Most of them, you can't say all, but most are designed to pretty much return the same range, correct?
They're all going to return relatively the same range. Here's a couple of parts. I'll give some fact and I'll give some opinion.
Okay.
Fact is cost plays an enormous part in this. And here's what I mean. Insurance companies have to make money. Okay? So if an option cost in, we'll just call it option index A.
Okay.
If the option cost in index A is really expensive, and that makes our ROI go down as a company. Well, hey, I've got this option B over here to where the cost of it's 50% less and we make more revenue. Well, will it work? Well, heck, our back testing says it works. Why not?
Interesting, which leads us back to
it's truly a cost play is why you see all these exotic, creative. I'm not saying that they're not trying to find the clients a better return. I truly believe they are, and here's why. Because if it doesn't go well, everybody pulls their money out. They don't care about penalties. They just say heck with it. It'll get moved at some point. So I truly do think they're trying to find a way to generate that better than average chance at a better than average turn. But in doing so, cost plays a major factor in that. We have to find options that are affordable so we can get that better than average chance at that return.
And I'm not against indices made up out of midair because I think you're right. I think they're trying to find a better mousetrap for the return. What I am against is the back testing of an indice that didn't exist.
I remember looking at one. I remember a long time ago, you and I looked at one that was the investment didn't even exist, and they had it in there, and it said it would have did this if this existed. Well, how do you know it would have did that? It didn't exist.
No, I agree. How do companies, okay, let's just say you're XYZ annuity company and you're going to do an index annuity and you don't want to do the typical S&P 500 index and you want to create one out of midair. How does that process work? Are they running algorithms to find the return that they want and then they name it?
Yeah, what they'll do is they'll create stuff that they've looked at. A lot of these investment banks, the really big companies, they have all these different portfolios and they say, well, if we pluck a piece from here and a piece from here and a piece from here and we put it together, we Frankensteined it, right?
Right.
We put it together and then they'll run, some companies will run more simulations than others. This is a big piece of the puzzle right here.
Yeah.
If you run like 20,000 simulations of all different ways, that could be construed as legitimate. That's a lot of different cuts and slices to look at this, okay? You're running 10, 15, 20,000 different scenarios. That is doing some due diligence, so to speak.
Sure.
What if you ran 100?
And nobody knows except the people working at those annuity companies what they're doing with that.
Only the sausage maker and the insurance company know how many scenarios and what they're running. And then the process, though, Stan, is interesting because the companies, some have in-house design people, some have outsourced the design.
Right.
They run it, they bring it in, and they all cross and check each other and do the stuff. But I think at the end of the day, I don't think there's anything wrong with making an index and trying, to find a better mousetrap. I think that's just called technology and growth and everything. I do have an issue with the back testing, how they back test it, how many times they back test it, where they back test it, why, I want to know what the framework was that you did all that from. That's important, and that doesn't get shared. That's just you'll get a call from a marketing company that says, Stan, here's the latest and greatest. These are the returns. And when you start asking really deep questions,
right,
the 25 or 30-year-old kid on the other end of the line that this was his first job out of college and just never left.
Right.
I think that's a really big issue, is because the people at the companies, the marketing companies, and I think you wanted to go here, so this might be a good segue.
Yeah.
You have the insurance company who builds the product. So think of them almost like a Budweiser or General Motors.
Right.
And then you have these marketing agencies. So those are the distributors. Think of it like a car dealer or like a Budweiser distributorship or whatever your favorite beer might be.
Right.
Keystone in your case, right? So they have the distributors. Well, the people working at the distributors work with people like Stair. If I give the wrong information, if I don't have the answer and I just make it up on the whim, what's my liability?
And the annuity companies have these marketing organizations in the middle, I'm assuming, to transfer the risk of liability. Is that the reason there's that extra step in there?
I don't
For 99% of the carriers?
No, I don't think so. And here's why, because I think if there's liability, whenever attorneys want to go for liability, where do they go?
They go to the money pit. Absolutely.
The deep pockets, absolutely. So they're going to get everybody up the panel. The reason why they take it to these companies, now the insurance company doesn't have to have the expense of a marketing company.
Got it.
They've outsourced the marketing to where these entrepreneurs, which by the way do a way better job than the insurance companies ever do.
True.
At marketing, because they're thinking, insurance companies are like big cruise ships and they don't turn very fast. If you're an entrepreneur, you can turn quickly. So they took it to them, they give them all this, what they need, and they'll pay them extra, do things, bonuses, you do our stuff and you get it out. And so they get to be creative on how they want to get that out. And so when you have that marketing company, it's a less expense for the insurance company. You don't have to hire, the 150 people in the marketing team to do all this stuff. You just give it to the entrepreneurs and let them do their thing.
Well, the final topic I want to talk about, because this
you notice how this keeps coming back to cost?
I know this has been fascinating. Of course, I've written a book on index annuities, the Fixed Index Annuity Owner's Manual. I'll send it to you for free. You go to theannuityman.com, and I've done pushing 400 videos on the Stan the Annuity Man YouTube channel. And a lot of them are on index annuities. So if you want to do that, you can do that as well. But what I want to close with, because this has been fantastic. And again, we're going to have Mr. X on to go. We're going to dig deep. This is just foundational. We're getting ready to, with the future podcast, really go into the strategies and things like that. But let's talk about commission. Let me preface the commission thing with all annuity commissions are built into the product. And you have to look at them like an administrative cost, like an electrical bill, water bill. It's just part of the overall cost, but they are hidden from the client. So if someone ever says, well, I'm not getting paid, they're lying, okay? And index annuities typically have pretty high commissions when compared to simplistic annuities. And a lot of it has to come down to the longer the surrender charge, the higher the commission. Doesn't make it bad, because when you put $100,000 in, $100,000 goes to work and you see it on your statement. But with all of that being said and that foundation laid, Mr. X, what is the typical, I guess the lack of a better phrase, commission load total for the distributor, the bonus, the attaboys, the soft money, and then the commission to the agent? What is that ballpark with a 10-year indexed annuity?
I'll make it so easy for the client to figure out.
Good. That's why.
Basically, take the surrender charge. So if I put $100,000 in, if I want to quit tomorrow, what do I got? So
let's just say it's 10%.
Let's say it's 90,000, so 10%, right?
Right.
Okay, that's generally the load, and I would probably add 1 or 2, maybe 3% more on top of that.
So you're saying 10 to 12% load gross for everyone everyone that has their little hands in it to get paid. That's the distributor, and then there's back end bonuses to some of the distributors. There's all kinds of soft money that no one ever sees, and most agents aren't even aware of. But you're saying on a 10-year, now obviously the shorter the duration, the less of that load. But most index annuities sold, I don't know what the stat is, but I'm assuming they're pretty longer term in length. Am I correct?
Well, they are. They're generally that 10, 12 year in length. And this doesn't make it bad.
No.
And here's why I'll explain that. Longer term assets generally yield higher return.
Correct.
Well, let's keep it simple. If you buy a 1-year CD or a 5-year CD, which one do you make more money in?
Yep, correct.
Well, that's a trick question, neither, because CDs are horrible. But in theory, you make more on the 5-year because you've committed to a longer time. The annuities are no different. If you can commit to a longer time frame, they can give you higher participation or a higher interest rate or a higher cap.
So they're buying better options. The longer the term the option, the better deal they're getting, correct?
Correct. And the reason why is the longer the term that option is, the cheaper it is to buy. So if I have to shell out less money for expenses,
right,
I can put more back into the client. It's a big teeter-totter is the best way to describe it.
I think this has been fascinating, Mr. X, because I think it really comes down to this: cost.
It's all cost. It's all cost on it's cost to the insurance company. It's cost to the agent or the rep or whatever term you want to give him. And here's why. If he wants to go a shorter term, he makes less money. If he goes longer term, he makes more. If you go longer term, you may make more. If you go shorter, you may make less. So this is where it comes down to, and I know this is a favorite of ours. It's your money. Tell me what you want it to do for you. And that sincerely may be the toughest question you will get asked.
And that comes down, I always ask people 2 questions. What do you want the money to contractually do? And when do you want those contractual guarantees to start? And if someone answers me market growth, then, I wish them a good day and have a nice day. But, I think in conclusion with all of this, indexed annuities have their place. They're principal protected life insurance products issued at the state level that are going to give you MYGA CD type returns, and they will lock in at the end of that indexed option duration. But the way that we really like using them as a efficient and cost-effective delivery system for future income using income riders. And if you answer the questions, hey Stan, I need income and I need to start 6 years from now, we're going to quote income riders, all income riders, and all deferred income annuities, because annuities are commodity products. There's not one that's better than the other. There's not one index annuity that's better than the other. And if someone says to you, I've looked at all the index annuities and this is the best one, that is a bold-faced lie. Am I right, Mr. X?
Grab your money and run. And run. And here's why. He didn't explore 700 indexed annuities. I promise you he did it. And then here's what he'll say next. Well, I went to this firm and my firm does all the research and this is what they came up with. Let me tell you how they came up with that. Okay? There's a couple of reasons. I'll give you maybe 3 or 4. Number one is they typically have a ledger or some type of software. They'll say, if I put 100,000 in, I'm this age and at this time frame, who pays me the highest income?
Right.
It spits out in numerical order from the highest payout to the lowest payout. So that's one piece of research. Typically, lesser rated companies pay more money. So here's my question. The guaranteed payout is only good as the company guaranteeing it.
Definitely.
Okay, and this is a big deal because I have guys that sell, and I'm not saying if you're, the companies are rated A, B, kind of like school, A plus, and it goes down. If I get a B rated company, maybe 1 in 1,000 goes bankrupt versus an A-rated company.
Sure.
I just know by luck I'll be the one that day that happens. And so that's very important. The
Sure.
second side of that coin is typically the annuity that gets presented is, and this is hard to hear, is where do I make the most? Where do I get the bonus? Where do and when I say I don't mean the client.
Yeah, the agent.
The agent. Where am I getting,
That's the decision they're making. I think the whole thing could be solved and I know this will never happen because it makes too much sense, and we got to close with this, is if all annuity types, and there's not just one annuity type, if all annuity types had the same commission level, then it'd be a better world, because then it would, agents wouldn't be making the decision on the commission, they'd be making the decision on the solution. But again, I'm dreaming, Mr. X, and you do know that. But
I'm with you, and I think one of the other things that the agents take into consideration as well, I understand this paperwork, I don't understand this new company's paperwork. I know that sounds crazy.
That's pretty elementary. Yeah, exactly. So
I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. And then, my list goes on, so we'll keep carrying.
Yeah, we're rolling. I mean, we could talk about this all the time, and I'm so happy that you joined us, Mr. X, and you'll be back. We're going to dig in. This will be a series with him, so that we can fully dig into index annuities. Once again, we like them. We just don't like the way they're sold. They are.
Annuities should be bought, not sold. And the problem is that they're sold. And
as I say with index annuities, they're not too good to be true, but they're pretty damn good if you understand them. And that's kind of why we're having Mr. X on, is to rip away all of that. So if you go to the Bad Chicken Dinner Seminar, or if somebody pitches you the too good to be true, these podcasts are going to clarify it, and then you can forward the podcast to the selling agent, and maybe they'll learn something. But with that, hey, I really appreciate you joining us, and thanks for all the podcast listeners and YouTube viewers. We'll see you next week on Fun with Annuities. Thanks for listening to Fun with Annuities. Please hit the subscribe button and make sure to go to my site at theannuityman.com, where you can run your own SPIA, DIA, and QLAC quotes and see a live feed of the best MIGA fixed rates in the country, and even get indexed and income rider quotes as well. You can also sign up for my 6 annuity owner's manual books, and I'll ship them for free and under no obligation. I also encourage you to schedule a one-on-one call with me, Stan the Annuity Man, so we can have a full discussion of your specific situation. It will be the best brutally factual and truthful advice you will ever get, and that's one guarantee you should definitely take advantage of. So join me next time for the #1 annuity podcast on the planet, Fun with Annuities.